Hello my students of class 7 and welcome back to your English class. Today also we would be proceeding with the supplementary text and the story that we started was The Tiny Teacher. So before we proceed with the story, let us recapitulate what we did. Okay, we understood that the tiny teacher refers to the ants who are very tiny in size, but we can learn a lot of things from them. So they are the tiny teacher. Okay. So the tiny teacher is the ants, and they are very organized. They are very disciplined. They lead a very organized life where all of the ants have got different work cut out for themselves. They live in places called the ant hills or nests, where there are separate quarters for separate purposes. Okay, so this is what we remembered. Where do they live? Ant hills or nests, where there are hundreds of little rooms and passages, and there are separate quarters for separate purposes. That means the queen ant stays in one quarter, the baby ant stays in one quarter, the soldier ant stays somewhere, and then there are the worker ants who have their own places for living. So can you imagine such a tiny creature having such an organized way of living? Their entire community is so systematic, something we all can learn from them, right? We might be really intelligent, we might be really big in size compared to them, but their organized lifestyle is something from where everybody can learn something. So I'll be repeating a little bit. Open page number 2 in your book, and we would be doing the last paragraph a little bit. There are many kinds of ants. The commonest among them are the black or red ones. We have seen them since we were children, but haven't paid enough attention to them. Where do they live? In their comfortable homes called nests or anthills. Each has hundreds of little rooms and passages. In some of these rooms, the queen ant lay eggs. Others are nurseries for the young ones called grubs. So what are grubs? Grubs are the young ones of ant. Grubs are little ants, or baby ants are called grubs. Okay. So grubs are also, there are also nurseries kept where these grubs have to be nursed, okay, because they are so young. Workers have their reserved quarters. They have their separate quarters. Okay, they have a separate quarters. For the workers, there are separate quarter. For the queen ant, there is a separate quarter. For the young ones, there are separate quarters. So can you imagine how systematic they are? They spend most of their time searching for food. Underline this line, and this line is about the worker ants. What do the worker ants do? They spend most of their time searching for food. Some rooms serve as storehouses for their food, for this food. So some rooms are there which are just for keeping food. The worker ants, they come, they bring their food and they keep it in these storehouses. Some rooms serve as storehouses for this food. Soldiers have separate barracks. Okay. No worker has ever tried to live in a soldier's house. No soldier has ever gone out searching for food. So the soldier ants who are there, they have their separate quarters. They have their separate places of living. And that is not something that they share with the worker ants. The worker ants, they have a separate place for staying. The soldier ants, they have a completely separate place for staying. And we understand that they do not mix up. There is no way that they can mix up between the two. That means the soldier ants, they will live in their own barracks, and the worker ants will live in their own rooms. Okay. No worker or soldier or cleaner has ever harmed a grub. So there are cleaner ants also. Okay. Cleaner ants are also there who has to clean the entire anthill probably. They have even cleaner ants. Can you imagine? So their life is so organized. So an ant's life is very peaceful. Each does its share of work intelligently and bravely, and never fights with other members of the group. This line is very important. Okay, underline this from this line, underline. Each does its share of work intelligently and bravely and never fights with other members of the group. And so they are peaceful. That's why they lead a peaceful life. So if the question comes, why is the ant's life peaceful? You can always say because of these reasons. Because all of them do their own work and they do not disturb anybody else. So their ant's life is peaceful. There are certain questions given in the comprehension check. We can just do it together at the end of the entire chapter. Okay, so now let us go to the second section of the story. Come to the text portion. The first key points which are given, they are just summarized points of what we are going to do in this part of the story. So let us come to the text of the second section. The queen is the mother of the entire population of the colony. It lives for about 15 years. It has a pair of wings but bites them off after its wedding flight. This flight takes place on a hot summer day. The queen leaves the nest and goes out to meet a male ant or drone high up in the air. On its return to earth, it gets rid of its wing and then does nothing but lay eggs. Okay, so this is the method of procreation for the ants. How do they procreate? They procreate because of the queen ant, who is the only female in the entire colony, in the entire quarter of the anthill. So this queen has to, it has a much longer life than the rest. It lives for 15 years, which is quite long time. Okay, now the queen ant has a pair of wings. It has a pair of wings and she goes up in the air on the wedding flight. When the procreation takes place, it goes up in the air where a drone male ant meets it, and after coming down from the air, it comes down and it bites off its own wings so that it doesn't have to fly for a while now. And then she comes back to the anthill, goes to that separate quarter which is reserved for her, and she just lay eggs. That's what her duty is. Okay, and then she just do nothing but lay eggs. This is the way the procreation happens for the ant. Now next, what happens after the eggs are laid? Eggs hatch and grubs come out. Soldiers guard them. Workers feed and clean them, and also carry them about daily for airing, exercise and sunshine. Look at the picture which is given there. Okay, the young ones are being carried by the worker ants to get their daily airing, their daily exercise and sunshine. Okay, that means they also think about the little ones who are taking birth. Okay, this is something that is innate in them. This need for caring for the little ones, because they will be the future ants. Okay, and these worker ants, they don't question their duty. Their duty is just to do all these things, to look after them and to clean them and feed them, and to take them out daily for airing. That means so that they can get some fresh air and sunshine. Just like the humans do with their own babies, they do the same thing. Now it is very difficult to imagine, very hard for us to understand this, and very hard for us to think if this is true or not, but it's actually true. It's a factual story, as I told you. Eggs hatch and grow. Okay, 2 or 3 weeks later, grubs become cocoons and lie without food or activity for 3 weeks more. Okay, the grubs, they become cocoons. Okay, they cover themselves up in a cocoon-like shell, and then they do nothing but rest. They live without food or activity for 3 weeks more. Then the cocoons break and perfect ants appear. The small ants that were there, they become cocoons. They live like that for 3 weeks, and after that, from the cocoon, proper sized ants come out and they can join the workforce again. Understood? Now it's time for teaching and training. Now you have to teach and train the young ants. How do they do that? New ants learn their duties from old ants as workers, soldiers, builders, cleaners, etc. Okay, according to the different types of works which are there. Already we found so many different works, right? Workers, cleaners, builders, soldiers. So many different works are there. So they are trained for all these purposes. After a few weeks training, the small ants are ready to go out into the big world of work. Okay, so after a few weeks training, they get trained by the senior ants, and after the training is completed, they are now ready to go back to their work days and actually join the workforce of the ants. An anthill is a home not only for ants but also for some other creatures. Underline this line. Beetles, lesser breeds of ants and greenfly. Why do ants want these alien creatures to live on their nests? Here also there is an important question, and so you will underline this part also. You can just box it, this entire place. Why do they let, so these ant hills are also shelter for different other insects. Okay, some other insects also live there. The beetles live there. The lesser breeds of ants live there. And the green fly lives there. Okay. So why do the ants want these alien creatures to live on their anthill without any kind of work or anything? Why do they let them stay in their place? Now underline this line. For several reasons, underline this. Some give off smell pleasant to the ant's senses. Others give sweet juices, and some are just pets or playthings like cats and dogs to human beings. Okay, so can you imagine? It's very difficult to imagine this, but it's true. Okay, so they keep them for different purposes. Some of the insects, they give off pleasant smell, which is pleasant for the ants' senses. They like to keep them around because of the smell. Some other gives out some sweet juices which the ants can eat. Okay. And some are just like playthings to them. The green fly is the ant's cow. The ants train it to give honeydew like milk with a touch of their antenna. They milk it just as we milk the cow. So the green fly, they secrete some kind of juice which is used by the ant, and like a honeydew. It's sweet juice which is given, and the ant likes to eat that, drink that. And the ants somehow touch the antenna and train the green fly to give out these kind of juices. Have humans learned as much as... Now the last paragraph is very important because this is the conclusion which the author draws, or what we can draw from seeing the life of the ants. What observations can we make? How can we learn from them? Everything is given in this last paragraph. So this last paragraph is very important. It will also give us the value of learning about these ants. Have humans learned as much as ants have? Perhaps they have, but they haven't put their learning to good use. They may still learn a few things from this tiny teacher. What are the few things we can learn? Hard work, sense of duty and discipline, cleanliness, care for the young ones, and above all, a firm loyalty to the land where they live. That is, firm loyalty to your own kind, to your own people. Okay, humans do not have this thing. Humans can learn so many things from the ants. Though we are much more intelligent animals, okay, we call ourselves much more intelligent animals, but we do not understand there are certain things that we can learn from the ants. What are they? The sense of duty we can learn. We can learn how to do hard work without complaining. We can learn discipline. We can learn how to care for each other in difficult times, and to remember our duties, that each of us have our own role to play in the society. And if we do learn these things from the ant, our life would be peaceful, organized, systematic, just like the ant's life is. Okay. So this was a very nice chapter. We learned a lot of things, lot of unknown facts about ants. We had no idea, right, that the ants had so many different qualities. They have so many separation among them. That means there are different kinds of ants who are given different duties, how they care for their young ones. All these things we learned. Okay, there are lots of value also which we learned from this chapter. So next day we will proceed with the comprehension check questions. Till then, thank you.